about my dev process and Writeups for this most recent WiCyS CTF. And I'm also going to tell you, I think in conjunction with Ash, coincidentally, why you should make a CTF. Yeah. So who am I? I'm AT. I'm a fifth year. This is my last semester. I break things. I'm a penetration tester and red teamer. And if you look at me, I'm starting to really enjoy bleach tie-dye. So yeah, for WiCyS CTF 2023, I actually decided to sit down and just write a good challenge. This wasn't the first time I tried this. When we were doing ISTS, I think 1 or 2 years ago, I played around with writing a CTF for that, and it wasn't very good. It was I didn't really strive to learn anything. I just wanted to use a couple of the tools I already knew how to use. I wasn't really implementing it from any sort of existing vulnerability. I just had kind of a process I thought was kind of funny, and I wasn't super cooperative with the team, so didn't really go through. This time around, I knew what I was working from, but I still took it upon myself to learn things. I was really cooperative with Joe, with Rachel, with everybody involved, and I think it turned out really great. And I learned a whole bunch. So I'm going to be going over basically not just what I did, but everything I learned while doing it. So Joe was very involved for lots of it, but when I couldn't use him, I did spend the one on school. I know, exactly. You couldn't. You would. Joe just said it was 1 a.m. on a school night, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. So when Joe's not up at 1 a.m. on a school night, ChatGPT is. So I was able to leverage that for some of the learning, some of the busy work. And I think it's really awesome. It's just a way to get these challenges on the ground faster without compromising quality if you do it right. So I'm going to go through some of my ChatGPT logs that aren't as stupid and embarrassing, and hopefully that inspires you to also give it a shot. So first, my workflow for this was going to be, I'm going to go to the write-up itself. And in the order that I did them, I started with a goofy idea I had. I did the vulnerability way before the theme, but I just wanted to call it hamsters eating bread because I looked up pictures of hamster bread, which is a Japanese thing, and I scrolled down and eventually it was just hamsters eating bread. I'm like, this is funny. So on hamsters eating bread, we have a nice login page, which we can sign up for. We can log in. I believe this is the instance that's already up, so I've already made the account that I always make with A and A. So we're going to log into that real quick, and we're going to see a few things. We're going to see a V2 and a no more V2. We're going to see a logout button. We're going to see an admin button. We're going to see a report a bug, and a funny look at the hamsters. So there's some sort of toggle V2. If we click that, there's chaos, sheer and utter chaos. There's an admin page that's behind auth, so when we actually click on it, we can't do anything. I'm going to no more V2 this because it's ridiculous. And then report a bug and hamsters. The first observation that you can make when you're looking at it is that toggling V2 is actually, if we look down in the bottom right, I don't know if people can see it, but I can enlarge it if needed. But you can trust me when I say that it's just a link back to login with a V2 toggled. The username and password are both in the request, so you can see the plain text password. If we take a peek at support, we can see that it's calling a function red.js, which would be short for redirect, which sets a variable to find the value of the parameter in the GET request R, and then if it's not null, sets the window location to it. In the workflow, we can see that when we actually submit a bug, it'll take us to a pre-coded value in that form, which is just /thanks. And that form itself is linked up to Selenium, which I learned a whole bunch about, which I'll talk about in a minute. But essentially, it's mimicking another person. So when we send a link, the other person clicks on that link. So if I just do localhost, it won't do anything fancy, but we'll see that after Selenium fails to render this in 10 seconds, it'll just go. 2 clicks. Yeah, there you go. So this is editable. We can make you go to whatever the app domain is. It's webhamsters /support, and then we use a URI payload for cross-site scripting, which is JavaScript :document.location, and then we set it to whatever controlled URL we have. I like to use request catcher plus unquoting or quoting it out, and then document.cookie, which will give us the session token, which we can then use to log into the support user, which we're stealing the session token from, and then we can get that support user's password, which will let us log into admin. What did I learn during this? That's the big one. It's right here. Yeah. So I learned the HTTP-only attribute of a cookie prevents session theft. I was struggling with this one a lot, and multiple people DM'd me, like, what is this? Because I had to specifically set a line to make it less secure, and I put a funny comment in there, and a lot of people noticed it. But yeah, there are some cookies that aren't going to be used by the JavaScript. They're only going to be touched by the server to tell whether or not you can do something. So in order to specify the JavaScript can't access it, you use HTTP only. Uniform resource identifier cross-site scripting payloads only work with JavaScript redirects. My initial plan for this, well, I mean, I want to do Flask anyway, but I was going to make it a server-side redirect. And part of the reason I was writing this in the first place is so I could learn a little bit more about this. And I realized that server-side redirects can't give you like JavaScript URI payloads. It wasn't working for me. So I had to figure out exactly how it was working. And I did. And a JavaScript redirect looks like setting the window location variable. So as I just showed you from the write-up, this is really useful because the client has access to all of the JavaScript. There's some obfuscation and packing that goes on, but at the end of the day, if you can figure out locally that you've received code that has window.location, you can search for that and figure out if maybe there is a scenario in which you can get cross-site scripting, which is useful for bug bounty and stuff. I technically learned Docker and Docker Compose in 380, and again by harassing Joe a little bit, but I needed more practice, I really did. So doing more projects with that, really getting in the weeds for that, super useful. Selenium, I love it now, it's awesome. And some general good web dev practices. I was working with an old roommate of mine, Beckett, and he helped me out a whole bunch. He has a lot more web experience than I do in terms of just development. So here are some ChatGPT logs. It's me messing around with trying to get a good Docker and Docker Compose. Your first draft isn't going to be your final answer. I went through a lot of iterations of this to try and get it working exactly how I wanted it. I didn't immediately understand that you don't have to do the networking directly. Docker Compose will handle the networking for you if you just give it like the names of the containers, and then you can refer to those as host names. So after a little bit of trial and error and asking ChatGPT to explain it to me, I got a better handle on it and working Docker Compose. And just because ChatGPT is super awesome doesn't mean you should neglect the actual docs. I definitely spend a lot of time in here trying to get the code working from these as well. Anyway, my second challenge, which is the one that most of you initially greeted, was quite fun. It was definitely based. Well, I should grab up the write-up first so you can see exactly how to do it. So this one was really funny, in my opinion. I called it Intergalactic Disco Octopus Rave, which is a backronym for IDOR, which is Insecure Direct Object Reference. Keeping that in mind, when we open the site, we see funny dancing octopus and a link. clicking the link brings us to another octopus, and there's some sort of warning about higher level copies taking longer, which many of you did not heed. If we take the naive approach, the load time increases. If we look at the HTML source, we can see that the octopus image is pulling from a static folder called party. And all of the octopuses are just the octopus and then the number octopus that it is. So it's really easy to set up like a simple scraper. I know in the actual challenge, it got leaked really early, and it's no big deal that it was 1,000 octopuses, but like you still can directly access it. You had to like find out how to do the vulnerability. If you found the 1,000th octopus not rendering, some people tinkered with it for a bit, others not as much, but pretty easy to figure out that is indeed a text file and not a PNG file with the flag in it. So yeah, for this one, less of the dev effort was in getting up a working Flask app, and more of it was in the AI generation of 1,000 funny octopuses. So I learned some cool batch stuff because I was generating the octopuses on Windows and the dev machine was in Linux. I played around with some models and stuff, although I have a lot of learning that I've done independent of this for that. Beckett wasn't there to help me with the funny HTML stuff, so I pulled up trusty ChatGPT for some basic CSS animations. And Flask has default exposed folders, which I didn't immediately know, actually. I was trying to do a route for every single one, but apparently that's really inefficient. Yeah, so this is how my backronym adventure started. I was like, ChatGPT, can I get some animal-related backronyms for IDOR? And I got a bunch of really boring ones. And then I said, make them goofy. And I got, among others, irresistibly dancing otter rodeo, incredibly dapper ostrich wave, etc. I could have used any of these. They're all amazing. Yeah, so keyframes, he just dance. It's not super exciting. Anyway, the batch stuff was really interesting. I learned, based on the auto-generated batch funny, that there's a little funny string in batch you can use to get the file extensions or something. And I'm positive I could make some funny script that would make that vulnerable, and I may still. But why does it take so long? How did I make it take so long? This is probably not a great design choice because there was high server load apparently for this. But there's the code. Time.sleep, and then I take 1.01254333 to the power, and then up to the power 1000, which I calculated it. That is exactly, I think, 72 hours. I was under the false impression a while ago that the challenge being 3 days meant full 72 hours. But the idea was it would be the exact length of the competition. So if you started loading it at the very beginning, it would only finish loading right as the competition ended. Anyway, for my hard one, cooperation is key. I've had a lot of fun. Oh, I didn't even show off the challenge. I can't look at the here. Do this. Yeah, so there's intergalactic disco octopus where you can click the button and get more funny octopuses. Anyway. For my third one, hard, this is called Hamsters Ate All the Bread. So in this one, we see the same no-auth screen as last time, but if we try and sign up, we get a funny, haha, hello, we ate too much bread, can't do web admin stuff. We removed sign up and deleted all accounts. So the key here is recognizing from the take-home that this is, instead of using a SQL database, this is using local files for auth and everything. So you can actually do directory traversal in the username. And as long as you can match the username to any file contents for the password, you can still log in. And I found it on the password when I was initially messing around. I was having trouble with URL encoding stuff, but apparently other people got it in ways that I didn't. And there were a bunch of different solutions that all exploited the same vulnerability, which I'm really happy about. But my particular way of solving it was the flag itself from the last challenge. I was also playing in the Docker container for a little bit. I just booted up the Docker container itself, gave myself a shell, and just looked around for as many files as I could that I might be able to use. I couldn't get any of the ones that ended in a new line to work, but that might be a skill issue on my part. And the empty files, if I tried to do that, I think it would cast the empty string as a Boolean to false. So that wasn't working for me. But again, that could be a skill issue on my part. I didn't play with it for that long. I just wanted to see if it was possible. Yeah, so just because Flask has a file storage option doesn't mean it's always a good idea. And QA uncovers a whole bunch of stuff. So you should always QA your challenge. I also had a lot of fun a few years ago when I was like co-op QA Michaela Burt's CTF, and we found a whole bunch of stuff that way. That's the most I've ever learned about signals and container escapes. So absolutely QA someone's challenge, get your challenge QA. Yeah, and so I actually specifically tried to stop this one. This was not me leaving this in. This was me genuinely making a mistake and then figuring out how I could abuse it. But for signup, you can only use alphanumeric. But for login, it doesn't check that your login is alphanumeric, so you can still use that. I've found similar stuff in the wild, which makes this a little embarrassing. I haven't found this specific vulnerability, but it was a client test that had the first element in web hamsters where you can see a user's password. I've done one of those tests, so presumably that could have been a possibility. And by far my favorite part of this was flavoring the challenges. So if you just make some sort of like scheduling app, then that's great. You included a vulnerability, but people aren't going to giggle when they see your V2 and the spinning icons, right? People aren't going to go nuts when they see 1,000 rainbow octopuses. So absolutely, the most fun thing you can do for your challenge is make it funny, make it appealing, even if you're not a cybersecurity user. It's just a good time. And absolutely write your own. Even if it's not for a CTF, if you're learning about web vulnerabilities anyway, like if you're in 380 and you want to understand more about how this kind of stuff works, not even code, I mean, part of it should be code review, but part of it should just be sitting down and trying to write it and seeing what mistakes you make and seeing how those can be exploited and figuring out all of this just by writing it yourself. Yeah, so just in general in security, best way to understand offensive is by doing a little defensive and vice versa. And you'll learn a whole bunch too, even if you're not learning for security. I know Selenium now. It's fantastic. I can't wait to keep playing with it. That's all I have. Questions? Thanks.
Which one of the challenges was your favorite to most?
Web hamsters for the flavor. For the stream. Which one of the challenges was my favorite to make? And web hamsters, because flavoring web hamsters hard was very funny with the ooh speak at the beginning. All right.
Ooh, nice. What a presentation.